Well, good afternoon, everyone. The H1B Guy here, and today, the H1B Guy live, discussing if there's any second lottery updates, taking a look at the September Visa Bulletin and doing a quick preview around that, as well as taking your questions and comments. But before we get started, I'd like to ask you, if you haven't already, to please subscribe to the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube and like this video so that I can continue to produce more content like this for you. I also wanted to mention the H1B Guy offers a variety of consulting services. I help businesses and individuals solve complex work authorization issues in the recruitment process while bringing awareness to employment-based immigration benefits. If I can help you, please reach out. I'd love to hear how. And you can book an appointment directly with me via the h1bguy.com. Today's post is brought to you by Syndesis and Path to Canada, the ideal plan B for high-skilled immigrants currently located in the U.S. whose status may be uncertain, by PERM-Ads.com, the industry leader in providing a seamless experience for employers and immigration attorneys navigating the complex PERM recruitment ad phase of the labor certification process, and also by Mob Squad. If you're a technology professional facing U.S. work visa-related challenges, don't leave your fate up to chance. Our partner Mob Squad has a solution. Join the squad. Well, I want to thank everyone who has jumped in here this afternoon to join me on today's live stream. It's hard to believe that a month has gone by since my last live stream, which was back on the H1B Guy's second anniversary, and that was back on June the 29th, 2022. Unfortunately, July just seemed like a really short month. Took a much needed holiday with my family, as well as have just been extremely busy here in my consulting practice and in my day-to-day life. But I wanted to start out by just saying a huge thank you to everyone who's recently found the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube, found the H1B Guy podcast on Anchor. Recently, the channel here on YouTube overcame a pretty significant milestone, and that is we crossed over 4,000 subscribers here on YouTube on the platform. I'm really grateful for each and every one of your support, and I just wanted to say a huge thank you. I also wanted to say thank you to everyone who's taken the time to check out my post on second H1B lottery for fiscal year 2023, which appears to most likely be the most watched video currently here on the H1B Guy channel. And also for those who have checked out my looking ahead to the October 2022 Visa Bulletin. Really just wanted to say a huge thank you for your continued support, for your views, for your comments, for your likes, for your dislikes, for everything in between. Just thank you so much for helping me continue to produce content like this. Through your support, through your interaction, your engagement. I just really appreciate it. And I wanted to just take a minute here as we kick off this live stream to talk about this. So thank you so much for all of your ongoing and consistent support. So I wanted to start off today's stream with talking about what really is on a lot of folks' minds. The post that I put out on the second H1B lottery for fiscal year 2023, those were dates that I've been talking about for the better part of 3 to 4 months now. And that is very early on. During a few live streams, I talked about the possibility of a second H1B lottery being held sometime between July 25th through July 22nd through August 5th. So we're a week and a half now into that. And of course, from my understanding, there are receipt notices that are still yet not received. If that is one of you, I'd love to hear from you. Please drop me a line in the chat or reach out to me directly and let me know that you have an H1B petition that was selected and filed before the June 30th deadline and you've not received a receipt notice. As we continue to kind of track through where we stand as it looks at the adjudication and approvals. of those cases that have already been received. I know of several individuals that had their petition filed mid to late June and have already received approvals. So it looks like USCIS is actively engaged in the approval process for those cases that were received from April 1st through June 30th. But if you have a case that was submitted and you've not received a receipt notice, I definitely would love to hear your situation. Of course, earlier in June, I covered the announcement from USCIS where they talked about transferring cases from the Vermont Service Center due to the backlog. So it looks like to me that they were working through those pretty diligently. But for those of you who've checked out that video, I still believe that there will be a second H1B lottery held. I do. That August 5th date, of course, is coming up really quickly, right? That's really we're looking at 9-10 days from now. If we go back and look at the first time a second lottery was actually held, we look at when those dates were, right? We can go back and look at that first time that a second lottery was actually held was August 14th of 2020. So my August 5th deadline is before that. If we go back to last year, July 28th, they held a second lottery. And then, that historic, right, the third lottery, which was held on November 19th of 2021. So I give you all of this information to say that I really appreciate, your questions constantly asking me, do I think there's going to be a second lottery? I do. But if we go back and look at that video, for those of you that have watched it and a lot of you that commented on it, by my calculations, I think there's only going to be anywhere between 8 to maybe 12,000 visas available. Of course, some of those will be in the advanced degree category. Some of those will be in the regular, foreign national bachelor's category, that's 65K. So the percentages for those of you that were, one of the 300,000 plus that weren't selected are still very low. And I calculated odds to be somewhere around 3%. And I know a lot of you are very anxious to know, like, is this going to happen? And I'm still hearing that the application rates, and this is the key for if a second lottery is going to happen. I'm still hearing that application rates are still anticipated to be below 60%. And as I've talked about many times, USCIS, by selecting that 127,000 plus individual registrations, is saying that they expect a 66% application rate. And a lot of you have asked me, well, what happens if the application rate is above the 85,000 that's allotted? And my answer's been, it'll be a first come, first serve. Right. So those applications, registrations, those paper applications that were submitted between April 1st and June 30th, it'll be a first come, first served, first received. Now that goes back to the confirmation of receipt, the receipt notices, and some cases potentially being transferred and how that's tracked. You should be able to see your status in your My USCIS account. So I advise you, if you're currently actively waiting for notification from either your employer or their immigration attorney, you can absolutely continue to monitor your My USCIS account. Now, my gut tells me that something is going to be happening in the next week to 10 days. I still believe that. I could absolutely be wrong. But the basis for all of this is that I do believe there's going to be a second lottery. I'm basing this on historical dates over the last 2 years, July 28th, August 14th. And I've been on record for several months now saying that I do believe a second lottery will be held, and I do believe it'd be between July 22nd and August 5th. So, I don't really keep up with many other channels that talk about this. In my conversations with other industry experts, there's a lot of I don't know and I'm not sure. But from a lot of what I've been hearing from my clients and from those that had individual names selected, that it appears to be that the application rate is pretty low based on the number that was selected. And the cause for that goes back to 483,000 registrations, right? How many of those were duplications? How many of those are firms that were, submitting a registration without an actual job, right? This is something that's been talked about a lot. And how, to me, when I've discussed this, while the electronic registration period in that portal has reduced the barrier to entry significantly, it's also created a situation where we're seeing a lot of duplications because the individual can have as many employers as are willing to pay that $10 non-refundable fee for that individual registration to USCIS. That's why you're seeing this inflated number. That's why you're seeing these very low application rates. And as I've gone back to and said, this is the one time where the individual actually has a choice. And we look at it to say if an employer if an individual has two different employers selected, which I know has happened. I know several individuals that have had this happen. They then have to go and tell that employer, yes, I want you to submit my application, or or they risk, if multiple employers are submitting the application, then both are null and void, right? So you start to look at how many times is this going to occur? What does that mean for the available numbers? And it all kind of leads me back to, this is why I continue to believe that there will be a second lottery held. I think these next 10 days are going to be very interesting. And I just ask all of you, because you're going to know before I do, because your attorney or your employer may notify you. I will continue to work my sources internally within USCIS and my contacts that I have that are very close to this matter to try to get as much information as I can. But things seem to be very closed right now. And I think it goes back to a lot of the processing backlogs. We look at what's happened in Vermont and, the fact that they've had to transfer cases. I know of some of you who have been waiting for your receipt notice. But the best thing that I can tell you is, if you have a tracking number, FedEx tracking number from your employer, your immigration attorney, and you still haven't received a receipt notice, as long as you know that paper application was received on or postmarked by June 30th, then you still have a probability here. But again, I don't want to sell hope. What I do want to tell you is that even if a second lottery does happen, the odds are extremely low. And I think a lot of you know that, but what this tells me is that the demand, right? The demand and the desire of high skilled immigrants looking to come to the U.S. who may be outside of the U.S., or those who came to the U.S., received an advanced degree, and are on an OPT or a CPT and looking for sponsorship. The demand continues to remain at an all-time high. And we can simply look at the results of the number of registrations received by USCIS. And as I've pontificated before, $10, 483,000. So $4.83 million stream of revenue. I think, honestly, what has to change is either the barrier to entry needs to be increased. And I've talked about $100. I don't think that's enough, but I think when we get into maybe the $500 or the $1,000 non-refundable, we want to talk about curbing these duplicate registrations. We have to increase the barrier to entry, and that barrier to entry is that electronic registration, that non-refundable fee. So what do you think, for those of you out there watching? Do you think a second lottery is going to happen? Are you confident that your application's been submitted? Are you still waiting to receive a receipt notice? Do you have a FedEx tracking number and it shows a postmark of June 30th and you still haven't heard anything? We're now, almost 4 weeks removed from the 30th. So I'd love to hear from you. And love to get an update for those of you who are anxiously awaiting. For those of you who weren't selected in that first round, again, I anticipate anywhere between, as I said, 8 to 10 to 12,000 possibly still available. We look at what those percentages would mean for maybe the advanced degree category. I'd say we're probably looking at a 75-25 split on the availability of the overall allocation. So, what does that mean in terms of overall numbers? Well, just say if we're going to base it on there's going to be 10,000 visas available that still need to be allocated and approved. I'd say 2,000 of those would roughly be in the advanced degree. That's, about what I think 80-20 split. 8,000 would be in the normal distribution pool of that 65,000. Wanted to ask you again, if you haven't already, to please like this video. Make sure you're subscribed to the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube. If you don't mind, click the bell for notifications so that you're notified anytime I post new content here to this channel or go live like I have here today on July the 27th, a little after 3 p.m. Eastern. If you're looking for ways you can support the H1B Guy platform, you can do so currently through the super chat function here on YouTube. If you're watching or listening to this at a later date, there is a super thanks function feature that is available on YouTube. If you like this content, you want to see more of it, you want to help me continue to produce and upgrade the quality and content technology involved in producing this type of immigration related content surrounding the H1B visa, surrounding the H1B lottery, surrounding the green card backlog. Would love to have your support. Just really appreciate, at the very minimum, if you would just give this video a like. And I want to thank all of you who have taken time here this afternoon to jump in on this live stream. To those of you who are already asking questions, I definitely am going to do a roll through. So I'll be getting to those. I've got a couple other things I wanted to cover before we do so. So I wanted to switch gears here. This coming up Monday is August 1st, 2022. So that means it's time for the H1B Guy Forecast. Of course, I am currently in the process and working on my September 2022 Visa Bulletin predictions through that post. But I wanted to give just a little sneak peek preview because a lot of you seem to enjoy this in terms of what I'm thinking and where I think the dates will advance. September is the last month for fiscal year 2022 as the government operates on an October 1st to September 30th fiscal year. Same is said for USCIS. So when we look at the Department of State and their advancement of the dates, it really comes back to USCIS's overall number usage and what they're reporting. And I think one of the most interesting things that I took away from the post when I did the looking ahead to the October 2022 Visa Bulletin was the fact that through June 30th, no coincidence on the date, right? The H1B lottery deadline, June 30th, 2022, USCIS stated that they, along with the Department of State, have combined to use 176,281 employment-based immigrant visas and remain committed to taking every viable policy and procedural action to maximize their use of all of the available visas by the end of the year. So what's interesting about this is we look at USCIS is very close to processing the total number of visas that they processed all of fiscal year 2021. That number was close to 180,000. They most likely by the end of this month will have crossed over that number. So the question really becomes, as this becomes an emphasis from USCIS as they continue to work through it, how far are these dates going to advance? When we look at September, when we start to look at October, but how many individual numbers will be used by USCIS before the end of the fiscal year? I think 200,000 is absolutely within reason at this point. So it's going to be very interesting to watch. We'll continue to look at the reports, but I think wastage is imminent, and that's the thing that hurts the most. I am reading that there is a possibility that there could be some more spillovers that will be allocated for fiscal year 2023. So we'll continue to monitor that. I'm sure those numbers will be reported in the November Visa Bulletin. Of course, that probably would come out sometime in mid-October. So we're still a few Visa bulletins away from what the overall allocation is, but we may hear the Department of State or USCIS go on record and state that before. But most likely those numbers will be made available, made public in the November Visa Bulletin. I do expect, final action dates to continue to be used for the September bulletin. I expect when we get to October, that'll switch to dates of filing, and that will most likely continue in October, November, December timeframe with USCIS accepting dates of filing over final action dates. But right now, what I'm thinking when I look at the September Visa Bulletin and what it means for forward movement or maybe not any movement, I do think in EB2 for India, I think at least the dates will get to January 2015. February still is in the realm of possibility. So again, we're looking at 30 to 60 days of forward movement. For EB2 for final action dates for China, we did not see any forward movement after we saw a month or a little bit over a month of forward movement in the July bulletin. So I think, again, kind of looking at dates overall for China, April or May of 2019 for final action, I think is still in the realm of possibility. For dates of filing, when we look at the September Visa Bulletin, this is the one that I'm really having the most difficult time with because I'm not sure if it'll move, or if it does, maybe it's just a gradual move. So I'm thinking January, February, March, which is kind of a 90-day window here. When we look at where that possibly could be, I think if it doesn't move, it'll hold tight at January. If we get just a month forward, or if we get 60 days forward, that's where that February or March would come in. And again, for China, for EB2, for dates of filing, feeling like it either may hold for May, or if it does move, it's just going to move a month. So most likely that May or June of 2019. For EB3 final election dates for India, and just kind of looking through it, we finally got some movement after almost a year of no movement, retrogression. And so I think there's a possibility that it could stay as is. I also think we could see maybe a month of forward movement, and that meaning that these numbers and the way that they're processing them are being counted against. So again, February, March of 2012. For EB3 India final action dates, EB3 final action dates for China right now, thinking again, kind of in a hold. What does that mean? Is that April? Is that May of 2018? So still thinking if it holds, we saw movement in EB3 final action dates for China. If it holds, it'll be April. If we get another month of movement, that'd be May of 2018. And then for EB3, for dates of filing for India, of course, we're sitting at February 22nd, 2012. So I'm thinking that if it holds, again, February 2012, maybe a month movement, depending on those numbers of March 2012, or in totality, we could see, EB3 final action dates of filing mirror each other, which would be that February 22nd. No movement for dates of filing. Final action maybe jumps a couple weeks. And then the same for EB3 dates of filing for China. We're sitting at May 2018 right now. I think June, if we see a month of forward movement, again, we saw movement for the first time in almost a year for EB3 for dates of filing for China. So, is there a possibility that we could see some again in September, just kind of inching those dates forward as USCIS and Department of State continue to process historically high numbers and looking at eclipsing that 200,000 plus fiscal year, number usage, which would be a historical number. While it does leave wastage and lack of available number usage on the table, at least the good news is that it's bad that they're not using all the numbers. The good news is that we're over 200,000 for the first time, at least since I've been keeping track of the overall number usage. So what do you guys think? Do you think that we're going to see some movement in September? Um, do you think it'll be kind of a slower incremental movement, or do we expect a lot of what we already saw in August? I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Wanted to ask you again, if you haven't already, please like this video. Make sure you're subscribed to the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube. Click the bell for notifications so that you're notified anytime we post new content here to this channel or go live like we have here today on Wednesday, July the 27th, 2022, a little after 3 p.m. Eastern. Looking for ways to support the H1B Guy platform, you can do so currently through the super chat function here on YouTube, or if you're watching or listening to this at a later date, there is also a super thanks function. Other ways to help produce and support the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube and the platform as a whole can be found in the links to the video description below. Also, again, I wanted to thank our partners, Syndesis and Path to Canada, PERM-ads.com, as well as Mob Squad. Links to all of their service offerings can also be found in the video descriptions. Please, if you do sign up, let them know that you found them through me. They definitely love tracking that and love to hear about all of that. So thank you for everyone who has taken time to register and sign up through our affiliate partners. Really thankful for their continued support and helping the H1B Guy platform continue to grow and continue to expand our reach and audience. Really appreciate all of you have taken time here this afternoon to jump in during this live stream. I definitely want to get to, there's a lot of questions. I'm going to do a rapid fire on them. Some of them I've already answered, so I'll try to be cognizant of that, but I still want to bring them up. I do want to talk about an interesting email correspondence that I had. And I had an individual reach out to me and was very interested in the H1B Visa Reform Act of 2004. And I think what's really interesting about this is, this was borderline comprehensive immigration reform. And, there's been a lot of talk about standalone pieces of immigration legislation versus a true comprehensive immigration reform bill. I've been on record many times saying that I think a smaller standalone piece of legislation has much higher probability of making its way through and becoming law. I've also gone on record and said that amendments for fiscal year budgets that include immigration have a very high probability of failure. But you have to take every shot that you can. And so the question that was really interesting to me, and I wanted to put this out there to all of you who may know this answer because I did not. And the question was, who was the initial sponsor of the H1B Visa Reform Act of 2004, which was included in Title IX, of the Consolidations Appropriations Act of 2005. It was also known as the Omnibus Appropriations Act of 2005. I covered this way back when, a long time ago, in the beginning of this channel. And that was during the history of the H1B visa part 4. And it was actually President George W. Bush who signed, this into law. And the interesting thing about the Consolidated Appropriations Act 2005 is that it actually established the H1B lottery. And that first establishment was March 8th, 2005. Through beginning of April. And that also made H1B visas valid starting on October 1st of 2005. Of course, this reduced the number of H1B visas significantly from 195,000 to 65,000 overall. And it also created that advanced degree category, right? That additional 20,000. But I thought it was an interesting question, so I dove in really far to try to find an answer, which I was unable to. But what I was able to find is that it appears to me that a lot of the text that was included in the H-1B Visa Reform Act of 2004 was language that was taken from a variety of other pieces of legislation. I'll list those off here because somebody may want to do the research and be able to identify the original sponsor. But ultimately, what I was able to find is that Senators Hatch and Senators Leahy had a lot of language surrounding immigration H-1B and L-1 that was previously introduced in the Senate Judiciary Committee. On the House side, Representatives Hyde, Graves, and DeLauro could have also played some roles in the language that was included in that H-1B Visa Reform Act. For those of you who are interested in kind of diving in further, those pieces of kind of standalone legislation were S-1452, HR 2849, HR 2235, HR 2688, HR 3534, and HR 4166. On the L1 side, there was language that was included from S-1452 and HR 2849, S-1635, and HR 2154, HR 2702, HR 4415, and HR 4166. So there's a little history there. The interesting thing about this very large, comprehensive that was included in the omnibus, right, the Consolidations Appropriations Act of 2005, is that it really kind of molded what the H-1B visa is and how it exists currently. So we talk about that's 17, 18 years ago. It's pretty interesting to see how long it's taken us to get to where we are currently in the present with the H-1B lottery in its current form with electronic registrations, and where we stand as it relates to the overall allocation. There's been no change in the overall H-1B allocations from that 65,000 and 20,000 in the advanced degree category that were put into law by this Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2005. So just wanted to share a little bit of that information. I found that very interesting. But I do want to jump into to your questions and comments. If you have questions or comments, I'm going to go ahead and get the Q&A started. So please feel free to post those in the chat, and I'll do my best to kind of rapid fire through those. Himanshu asked, when will second H-1B lottery happen? Again, as I've said, I think possibly by August 5th, which is roughly 10 days from now. But when we look at historically speaking, the first time that a second lottery was held was August 14th of 2020. I think a lot of what's going to hold this up is going to be dependent upon the actual receipt notices being assigned out and those overall approvals. Hey, JCP, thanks for joining. Good to see you. Thanks for your consistent support through these live streams. EB2 priority date, Jan 5th, 2015. Thoughts on final action date? Current is September of 2022. Well, I think you probably heard me earlier, but I feel like January 1st is most likely what's going to happen. But I will leave the door open for February 1st being a possibility, although I think the percentages are lower than January. But I think, again, kind of based on everything that I'm hearing, I think if it's not September for you, then I still think October has a very high probability. I'm not buying into the rumors of retrogression for October at this point. I think if and when it happens, it may be at a later date in the fiscal year. So yeah, I think you have odds because you need February 1st versus January 1st. I think you're close. I'm hopeful for you in the next couple months. Again, I still believe it's going to happen from everything I'm hearing. Srini, is that for the second lottery, I'm hearing that, application rates are hovering at or just below 60%. And that's going to be, ultimately the differentiator on whether a second lottery happens or not. Hey, how are you? Does the master's cap apply in case there's a second lottery? Yeah, I mean, again, they're going to pull from the percentages, right? Because it's two different pools. So it really comes down to if every of the 20,000 has been receipted and approved, then they won't pull from that pool. It would just be from the 65,000 or whatever's remaining in that. I hope that makes sense. Yeah, do global layoffs increase the chances of a second lottery? Right. I mean, I would say yes, absolutely. We look at the news of all these rescinded offers, all the cutbacks that are occurring in tech, big, small, startup, VC. You have to think that some of those are possibly H1B visas. Some of those were maybe decided when a lot of the rumors were occurring in May and June of the cuts. And we've seen that continue through July. That they just decided not to file those applications. One, cost, and two, maybe no longer have the need for the role. Excuse me. So yeah, I think that global layoffs could absolutely increase your chances, but what chances is it increasing? Well, what it's increasing is that ultimately it's reducing the overall application rates. But even if so, even if that rate is 58 to 60%, the overall numbers that are available are only really between 8 to 12,000 anyway. USCIS just has a legal obligation to fully utilize all of the available numbers in the fiscal year. Why doesn't USCIS permanently block H1B applications for single person? Yeah, this is where the one time that the individual has actually freedom. I don't disagree with this because I think what it's creating is an overall inflated demand. And it goes back to that low barrier to entry, right? So if you're not going to block multiple applications for individuals, then you need to increase the registration fee that's non-refundable. And again, I've suggested, $100 per registration non-refundable probably isn't enough to warrant or to curb some of these duplicates, right? That kind of fraud that many like to throw out. So I think $500 to $1,000 would need to be where that non-refundable fee would be, and that non-refundable fee. Think about how significantly that would reduce the overall number of registrations. Hey, Karan, thanks for doing this. I've been waiting for the second round of figuring out other ways to be in status. Yeah, depending on your status, there's only a few different ways, right? More school, CPT, leave the country altogether, or potentially look at, one of my partners, Path to Canada, Syndesis, Mob Squad. They have excellent programs for job relocation if you have a U.S. employer that wants to keep you, or if you maybe want to pursue an opportunity outside of your current employer in Canada. Both have excellent processes, excellent clients, and really are experts at what they do. But if your time is running up and you want to stay here in the country, the best thing to do then is you're going to have to spend more money and look at changing status, that CPT, or potentially looking at an alternate status. Now, there are some new ways and creative ways that are coming up, and I'm going to talk about this more in the future. About going from exempt to non-exempt, and really kind of how you split up your hours and having dual H's. But I'm going to cover more on that in the future. I'm going to have an expert on to talk about that. Really excited. Don't have the dates confirmed, but I definitely will be keeping you all posted on that as a potential option. Chimbe asks, if my OPT ends before the second lottery, when could I actually continue to work in my job if I get selected in the second lottery? So what you're talking about is potentially a cap gap. I'd be curious if you could just drop this in the chat for me. When is your expiration date? Hey, VS, you filed your I-45 in April 2022, EB2 priority date of February 2014. You've done your biometrics on June 8th. Is there any chance I-485 adjudicated before September 30th? Well, what's interesting is I've been hearing of cases that have been submitted months. I-45s have been submitted months and even years after, others that are already receiving approvals. So again, if we're talking about where you stand, I think you have. I think it's possible. I do. Um, but I don't want to get your hopes up either. Just know that hopefully you're locked in at this point, and at least if at the very worst case scenario for you is an EAD with AP. But let's continue to monitor this. I'd love for you to keep me posted. And if you hear something, between now and the end of the fiscal year, I'd love for you to let me know if you don't mind. Thanks for your question. Appreciate you jumping in here this afternoon. Pawan says, thanks, Bob. Absolutely. My privilege. Sabello asks, quick question for H1B cap exempt visas for nonprofits. Are they experiencing long processing times? My understanding is that it's around 60 days, if not a little bit more than that, depending on the service center that your application was submitted to. Can you let me know where your application was submitted? Hey, Karnika, how are you? In case of multiple applications, a person is filed with one employer, do the rest of the entries in the pool for that passport become null and void? Yes. Meaning, you have to work for the employer that was sponsored or that applied and approved. So if you're outside of the country and you have approval, you only will be permitted to enter into the country under that current employer. You have to work in the US under that H1B before you could consider transferring or changing employers. Sankar says, sorry, joined late. Looks missed many important info. Is there second round of H1B lottery announced? Selection date, please reply. No announcements yet, but I do think the next 10 days are going to be pretty critical here. I still feel like we're going to hear something. But again, if we go back and look at historically speaking, maybe just benchmarking 2020, it was August 14th. Right. So again, we look at August 12th would be a Friday after the 5th. And then we get into the 19th. So again, I'm not going to extend out my guess. I still believe that a second lottery is going to happen. But we're halfway through my 3-week range that I had given in that second H1B lottery for fiscal year 2023 post. So I still think it's possible, absolutely, based on everything that I'm hearing in terms of the overall application rates. But 3% odds, right? Very low selection probability. Raj Kumar, I think I just answered that question a few times. So if you have any other questions around that, let me know. Gangadhara asks, any chance EB2 India June 11th filing date this year? Now, I'm assuming you're asking me about 2023. And my answer to you is yes. I think October and November, you're going to see some pretty crazy advancement. Again, these are guesses. They're completely made up. You take them for what you want. They're most likely completely wrong. But I think final action will be June 1st of 2015 in October. And I think that you'll see July 1st of 2015 for dates of filing. So that would put you right in your range that you're asking about. Heard that tentatively August 5th, the second round will happen. Thank you. Again, that's what I've been saying, Sankar. I appreciate you letting me know. I can't wait to hear from those of you who do get selected. When you do, you've got to let me know. Hopefully I'm right on the date, but if I'm not, ultimately, I just want to try to bring the best information I can to you from my industry experts and sources that I have. I'll continue to make as much of this public as possible, and we'll continue to help keep you all informed so that you know where you stand and you can do what's best in your career. Hey, Pawan, again, filing fees, $100 US. Yeah, absolutely. But that's a minimum. I don't know if that lowers the barrier to entry enough because the value, right? You could build in the value, the cost on the expense of the employee for this $100. Now, when we're getting to 500 or 1,000, now we're talking about an employer who's really serious. Excuse me. Chimbe, you said August 13th. So you really need that August 5th date to be true. I'm going to keep my fingers crossed for you, my friend. Will do my best to help you. If you have questions, just keep me posted. But if you're if you were selected on August 5th, you would be under cap gap. Do I provide any service or refer sponsor contacts for H1B visa filing from any and also for Canadian work permit? If so, are there ways to reach you? Yes, I do both of those. But in terms of here looking in the US, would need to understand your situation. For Canada, you can go into the video description here and it will take you to Path to Canada as well as Mob Squad. Both offer services for recruitment and identifying opportunities for you in Canada that then they help kind of a soup to nuts relocate and get you your Canadian work permit. Raj Kumar S. Is officially noticed H1B visa second lottery on August 5th. No. These are just my off the wall predictions, but I have been really consistent in this July 22nd through August 5th time frame. If you go back and watch any of the live streams that I've done, all the way back to April, you'll hear that I've talked about this 3-week time frame for quite a while. So it's not new. It's not something I made up just for the video that I posted 2 weeks ago. Arvin asks, if someone were to apply for GC and then get RFE on the I-140 non-premium processing, is the I-765 frozen or still pending processing? I do not know exactly, Arvin. My guess would be it would probably be pending. But if anyone else has any experience with this, would love for you if you could drop it in the chat for Arvin. But my guess is it most likely would be pending. Sabella asks, I'm still going to apply working on negotiation with a potential employer, but my nonprofit is based in Baltimore. Yeah. If you're willing, you most likely could upgrade to premium processing. Again, maybe a couple $1,000s is worth the peace of mind to you. Just my 2 cents. Sorry, Rajan asked, I believe we already answered this question. I'm late to live. Possible date for H1B second lottery if my F1 expires before that, but I'm still inside the US. Then you have 60 days. If you're not a classic cap gap and you fall into that, of course, if you're selected and, applied, you may, looking at the time frame, your 60 days, depending on when it expires, could be very close to that October 1 date. So you have a pretty interesting timeline. But yeah, you have 60 days after your F1 expires. Happy to answer that for you. Application rate last year was 66%. Wonder how I'm extrapolating application rate for this year around 60%. Well, USCIS is on record in their selection from the 483,000 registrations they received. They selected 127,000 names. So they basically are telling us they expect a 66% application rate. What I'm telling you is based on my insider knowledge and my points of contact that right now it appears that application rates from many of my clients as well as other individuals that I know are hovering around that 60% rate. I expect anywhere between a 58 to 60% rate, if I'm being honest. But I've been wrong before. I'll be wrong again, and I could be wrong on this. Chimby says, thank you. Absolutely. My pleasure. Quran, my EAD's already expired on July 11th, and I get picked in the second lottery. Can I go back to work? You definitely need to talk to your immigration attorney on this. I don't believe you would apply for CapGap, but you possibly could. The issue is with you, right? You're 60 days from the 11th, so August 11th, September 11th. Ooh. That doesn't put you at that October 1 date. So I'm sure you're already making plans to potentially change the CPT or leave the country at this point anyway, would be my guess. Thanks, Pawan. Really appreciate that. That's what I intend to do. That's why I created the H1B Guy platform. Ultimately, that's one of the reasons why I love having these live streams is I get to interact with all of you directly. And I really, really enjoy that. Thank you so much for your support. How many H-1B visas have been approved so far? An estimate. I've not seen a number, but if you're asking for a guess, I'm going to guess probably somewhere around 65 to 70,000 out of the 85,000 overall. I'm combining both categories, but that'd be my guess, Victor. Probably somewhere around 80% at this point. Last question, is a third lottery definitely not likely? No, I'd say that's absolutely not possible. USCIS, from everything I've heard, was pretty embarrassed by the fact that they had to hold that third lottery in November. Talking heads like myself, even discussing the possibility of a fourth lottery, were embarrassing to them. So I think this is a situation where they saw the 483,000 overall registrations and made it a point to, because of the very low historical rates of application, made it a point to select that 127,000 historically high number, right? So again, appreciate everyone who has joined in on this live stream. Before I wrap up, I just want to mention one last time, if you're looking for ways to support the H1B Guy platform, you can do so through the super chat function here currently on YouTube. If you're watching or listening to this at a later date, you can do so through the super thanks. If you're listening or watching this on the H1B Guy podcast, please leave us a rating. Would love to hear from you. Appreciate all of you who listen through through my Anchor or through your preferred podcast platform. Cannot thank you enough for taking time to listen to me and my useless or maybe semi-useful ramblings around employment-based immigration. I wanted to thank everyone who asked a question or dropped a comment. Whether you agree or disagree with me in my predictions and opinions, I just thank you for jumping in here on this live stream and taking some time here out of your Wednesday afternoon to join me. I'm very grateful that this live stream is brought to you by our partners, Syndesis and Path to Canada, the ideal plan B for high-skilled immigrants currently located in the U.S. whose status may be uncertain. If you're facing an H-1B denial or OPT expiration, don't get caught off guard. Make sure you have a plan B, and Syndesis and Path to Canada are your answers. They'll gladly help you navigate the process. And if you want to find out if you qualify, and I've mentioned this multiple times during the live stream, go to the link in the video description below, register, and someone from Syndesis or Path to Canada will be in touch. And also by my good friend Carl Balsmeyer and his team at PERM-ads.com. The industry leader in providing a seamless experience for employers and immigration attorneys navigating the complex PERM recruitment ad phase of the labor certification process. If you're looking to reduce your costs and overhead associated with PERM labor certification recruitment advertising, let my friends at PERM-ads.com help you. And also by Mob Squad. Are you a technology professional facing U.S. work visa-related challenges? I know many of you are because we've already talked about it here during this live stream. Do not leave your fate up to chance. Our partner Mob Squad has a solution. Mob Squad helps technology professionals facing U.S. work visa uncertainty remain working with their current U.S. company nearshore from Canada, as well as technology professionals from around the world who are seeking an opportunity to find a rewarding career in North America. Through their partnership with the Canadian government, they can obtain a Canadian work permit for you and your spouse in as little as 6 to 8 weeks. So whether you're looking to stay working with your current U.S. company or you want to find a new opportunity in Canada, please find out how the team at Mob Squad can help you via the link in the video description below. Join the squad. One last time, just going to ask you, if you haven't, please like this video, subscribe to the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube, click the bell for notifications so that you're notified anytime we go live like we did here today, or we post new content here on this channel. Hopefully have a couple of new posts out for you, maybe one by Friday, and also be on the lookout for the H1B Guy Forecasts, September 2022 Visa Bulletin employment-based predictions. To every one of you who's made it this far, who dropped me a question or a comment, thank you. I cannot do this without you. I'm humbled and grateful for your continued support and coming and checking out my live streams and just overall consuming my content. Really, really, really just appreciate you. I cannot thank you enough. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Instagram. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Follow me on Facebook. Come join my Telegram channel. Would love to have you be a part of this community. Go to the h1bguy.com if you're not already registered. And just continue to thank you so much for your ongoing and continued support here. I'm Robert. I'm the H1B Guy, your global source for all things H1B.